Hello and welcome to yet another video. So in today's video, it will be a bit different as I will be narrating throughout the entire video, and I will be giving a quote-unquote a review / tutorial on how to fly this brand new Boeing 737-800 for the Aerofly FS Global Flight Simulator. That is such a long name for a simulator, by the way. So as you can see, this is the new plane, which is still in beta. It has not been released publicly yet, but so far I have started it from cold and dark state, and I have taken it for a short takeoff, and so far I would say it is pretty good. So let's first start with just checking out the exterior model of the plane, which in my opinion Ipacs have done an amazing job with the modeling. As you can see how the light reflects on the skin of the aircraft. It's not actually perfectly smooth as they all should be. You have like the divots here, and it shows with the reflection, which is very nice. Although the liveries can be a bit pixelated, but that's fine. Also, the landing gears do look quite amazing, if I do say so myself. It's modeled pretty well. The engines here, again with the pixelated liveries, and again you can see the imperfections in the fuselage, as in it's not entirely flat, and you can see how it reflects the surrounding items. So yeah, I can safely say that they did an amazing job with 3D modeling the exterior model of the aircraft. So now let's jump into the cockpit real quick, and as you can see, it shares a lot of similarities with the cockpit of the Boeing 737 MAX 8 released a couple months back. And yeah, I think it looks really good. If there's one thing I were to complain about, it would be it looks just a little too clean. But I'm not complaining, it does look really nice. And maybe we can just assume that this plane has just rolled off the factory and it's a brand new plane. I'm not so sure if these knobs here, these engine starter knobs, are supposed to be in this configuration for Malaysia Airlines, but it is what it is. Still, it looks nice. So yeah, and all the switches here, they do function, except for the circuit breakers. All in all, I think they did a pretty good job, and it looks really nice. So in my opinion, to me, the 737-800, or the 737 in general, has always been the default aircraft, you know, the aircraft that comes standard with any flight simulator. So for Ipacs to bring in this generation of the Boeing 737 this late is quite surprising, because you know it has always been the default plane for flight simulators, but it is better late than never, and I think they did a pretty good job putting it in this simulator. It is basically a free add-on, you know, if you have bought the aircraft expansion pack, which can cost a lot less than buying a brand new plane add-on for MSFS or X-Plane. Anyway, so let's start up the aircraft. So same routine as the Zibo and the default plane, which I have a tutorial for in the channel, you can look for that. So first we'll start with the batteries, and now the aircraft is turned on battery power. Close the cap here. Oh, there we go. And go up here and put on nav. Yeah, nav. And also, I'm not a fan of how the camera works in this simulator, but we move 1, 2 to the heading and STS, so it's 2 minutes to align, not that long. We also turn on these hydraulic pumps. So theoretically, if we were to do a walk around the aircraft, we would check for the hydraulic pumps and see if there are leakages. So that's why we turn these on first, and then I think that's pretty much it. We can also do tests real quick. So let's test the stall warning, which does work. I can't check the yoke, but let's just assume they do shake as well. The flaps light thingy, and also the fire test. Yeah, cool. And the oxygen. Also, I forgot to turn on the ground power unit, so just like that. So we now have ground power for the aircraft. Let's turn on these chimes, just like that. Let's move on to entering the flight plan. We are first clear up this panel here, go to the FMC, position initialization, and we'll put in our departing airport, which is Kuala Lumpur International Airport, WMKK. Not sure what stand we're at, so I'm not going to input that in there. Next page, grab these coordinates and put it right here. That was quick. Has that been 2 minutes? I think it has. So let's now move on with filling out the actual route. So WMKK on the scratch pad and WSSS, which is Singapore Changi International Airport. Flight number will be Malaysia MAS 7. Oh, that's not 7. 7380. Not an actual flight number, but it is what it is. So departing runway 14 left, I assume. I do have a flight plan here, which I have generated with SimBrief. Yeah, okay. So I think it's better if we just use this flight plan. And then let's go to Singapore, and we will be landing at runway 20 right. Okay, ILS 20 right. 20 right is right here. Via this one, just like that. 19,000 feet. Okay, continue flight, I guess. I'm not familiar with the Aerofly FS's flight plan creator, so that's a huge discontinuity. So to remove a discontinuity, just basically choose the next waypoint after the discontinuity and just paste it right here. And that's it for now. Let's go here, and I'm pretty sure you can just input that is 90,000 feet by the way. You can just click here and they'll just show you the value, so you don't actually need to count it, I guess, but you can do that if you want to. Cruise wind will be 6,916. Can I just? Yeah, I can. So you can also just click on it without actually looking at the flight plans. So, and one limit, let's just leave it as it is. And the flaps will use flaps 5, and the takeoff speeds are calculated for us. TG trim 5.5. 5.5. That's basically 5.5. Okay, good. So that's it for the flight plan. Let's now move on to the MCP, set to 19,000 feet. Our takeoff direction will be 146 degrees. That's the heading of the runway, if you're wondering. And let's set this to 160, I guess. 160. Turn this on. Can we enable the VNAV and LNAV? Yep, we can. Turn on the flight directors for the co-pilot side. And now let's start up the APU. So to start the APU, basically you just move this to on and flick it to start. You can't really hold it to the subposition in the simulator, but yeah, just flick it once and it should start the APU, which I believe we can also see on the outside view. Yeah, the sound that it's making now is the sound of the APU starting up. And I'm not sure if Aerofly has the exhaust effect coming, but yeah, that's the sound of the APU starting up. So we'll just wait a couple seconds. So now back into the cockpit, we can transfer the thing to the APU, just like that. You can also turn on the air conditioning. And now let's just turn on the yaw damper, and we are basically done and ready for, I forgot to turn this on, you need to at least turn one of these on when starting up the APU. And I've heard from my friend, he once told me that in order to know which ones to flick is you need to check here and see which side of the tank has more fuel. You'll turn on the fuel pumps for that tank, so the APU will just burn through the available fuel on that set tank. Let's say it's on the right side, so you turn this one of these on, if I'm not mistaken. So that's it, and we are now ready for the engine start, since we are already facing out towards the taxiway. So to start the engines, we first need to turn off these pack conditioners, these pack things here, and I believe you also need to turn this off. So turn these on as well. And now let us start engine number, is this number 2 or number 1? The left side of the engine first. So we'll wait until the N2, N1, this value here goes to, I believe, 21, and you can hear the engines coming up. And fuel in. Now for engine number right, because I don't remember which number the engine is. And we'll take the exterior view for this one. I'm just gonna flick this immediately. Okay, the engine starts sounds good, but they're not accurate. But it does sound good, so that's that. So now with the engine started, we can also flick these gen buses to on, and now we are relying on the engines to provide power. Switch these to on, air conditioning packs can come on, the APU blade can come off, and we can also turn off the APU, just like that. And go up here and just turn on these window heaters and the anti-ice, which is actually not required, but we'll just do it anyways. And that's it. We are done with the engine start. So let's go to the wing view here and deploy the flaps. So flap 5, so it's 3 clicks, 1, 2, 3. That sounds good. That actually sounds like the actual flaps coming out. Now for surface checks, so full left, full right, down, up, and rudder. All good. And that's also, I believe you can check it here. Systems. So forward, back, right, left, and rudder. And the speed brakes. Set the auto brakes to RTO. Let's turn on the taxi lights here. Engine starters to continuous. Let's also turn on all these lights, even though they're not required. Set the cabin altitude to 19,000 so that the cabin will pressurize properly. And I believe we are set to go. So, alright, so let's go. We are ready. Double click. Okay. So, parking brakes can come off. And we should be rolling, yes. holding short on runway 14 left. Let's just set the parking brakes real quick. Now we will turn on the landing lights and the runway turn off lights as well, and we'll switch this to TA and RA like that, and we are good to go. Parking brakes off, and let's taxi onto the runway. Alright, so 40%. I'm not sure where to turn on the N1 here, but we'll just do it manually. Stick forward. .80 knots, release stick pressure. Rotate. Positive rate and gear up. Pitching the nose to match the flight directors, but we're not exceeding 15 degrees. Retract the flaps a bit. And there we go, N1 is engaged. Retract more flaps. And flaps fully retracted. In case you're wondering when I decide to retract the flaps, I just refer to these values here. Just now they said to have 1, 2 and 5. So whenever I'm close to the number, I'll just retract the flaps according to the levels. Currently still hand flying the aircraft to follow, and I'm following the flight directives here. So the flight directives will basically follow this magenta line right here. So when this turns, it will just shift to the right and it will shift to the left again to follow this path. And I'm making very slight inputs to match the flight directives. Now this orange thing indicates that we need to press the standard button here, but we'll do that after we turn on autopilot to help us with the flight, which I will enable after I straighten up this plane. And engaging autopilot like that. The autopilot is flying the aircraft and I can clean up the aircraft. So press this to standardize that, and we can also disengage the auto brakes. We can't really put this into the off section here because it has only the down and up configuration. The engine status can go back to auto and the anti-ice can be switched off. And we can also turn off the landing and runway lights and the taxi lights as well. And that is pretty much it for the setup to climb and for cruising. After reaching our cruising altitude of 19,000 feet, I would set the altitude to 3,000 feet, which is sort of like my default landing preparation altitude for when I approach the destination airport. And I will also set the ILS frequencies for the airport. So in this case, Singapore Changi is 108.90, and let's activate that. And we'll do the same for the side, 108.90, and activate. And the course will be 204. 204 being the heading of the runway that we're landing at. All this info you can either get from Navigraph if you're subscribed to it, or you can also get it from here. Just go to the navigation, ILS here, and you can see the frequencies and the course heading. So the frequency will be 108.9 and the course will be 204 degrees. And that is how you look at, and that is how you find out the frequencies and the course heading. And you'll just input them into the plane. The course will be here, and the frequencies will be right here in the console. The reason why we set this altitude to 3,000 is that once the plane reaches the stop of the set point here, the plane will automatically descend to this altitude whilst following the altitude restrictions set at these waypoints. So at waypoint alpha, the plane will descend itself to 6,000 feet and so on, and it will stop descending at 3,000, and that will give us enough time to prep up the plane for arrival. Now approaching flight level 6,000, as you can see, the orange thing is back, so all we need to do is just press the standard button again. And we can also turn on all of the landing, runway and taxi lights to on. Engine starters can go back to continuous, and the anti-ice, although not required, will just turn them on. And we can also now get ready to vector ourselves to intercept this white line here, because that will be the point where these diamonds will start to move. And when it does move, even slightly, we will press this button here, the VOR localizer, and that will help the plane to align laterally. Then this diamond, which will actually be up here, it will then start to go down, and that is when we will then press this APP button, the approach button. And that means that the plane is on its course to follow the ILS frequency, and it will just fly down towards the runway. And if we haven't done so yet, we should go to the approach here and select our landing speed, which will be 140 plus 5, so it will be 145 knots for our landing speed. And let's also set the auto brakes to number 2. You can retract the spoilers now, set it to armed. We are pretty much ready for landing. As you can see, the diamond here is starting to move, and we can now press the localizer button here. And the plane will try its best to match again the flight directives. And this will help us to actually align ourselves directly to the center line of the runway. Now we'll just have to wait for this diamond to start moving, and we'll arm the approach button. And that's the runway. And now this diamond is starting to move. We can now engage the approach button. And the plane will now follow the ILS and the glide slope towards the runway. At 1,000 feet, we'll disengage the autopilot and then fly the plane down towards the runway. And for now, I will just set the altitude to 5,000 in case we need to go around. And the heading as well, pointing towards the runway. And we are set. Gear down and deploying the flaps. Approaching 1,000 feet now, let's just disengage the autopilot and the auto throttle.
1,000.
And flying the plane right now. And I am making very minor inputs to control the plane. So far so good, 2 reds and 2 whites.
300.
A little high now.
Plus 100. Minimums.
Continue.
50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
We are floating. Touchdown. And reverse full. Retracting reverses at 60 knots. And we have arrived at Changi, Singapore International Airport. Retracting all flaps and vacating the runway on our left. Let's start the APU before we arrive at the gates. And turn off the landing and the runway lights, runway turn on lights. We'll leave the taxi lights on. And we will also disarm and turn off the auto brakes. Let's turn off the taxi lights now. And turn in to go to our gate, right next to the 777 of Malaysia Airlines and the Singapore A380. Let's try our best to align the gates to our door. We don't have the traffic light thing to guide us in, so this is a guessing game. And I would say it's right about around here. Alright, we'll check afterwards. So right now, just turn on the parking brakes and turn on the APU gen buses. APU bleeds can come on, anti-ice can come off, and engine status to auto. Turn off the seatbelt signs, and finally we can turn off the engines, just like that. And welcome to Changi. And that's a pretty good job on the parking. As you can see, the gates is pretty much all lined up with the door. Alright, so my final verdict on the plane, I would say overall it's a pretty good Boeing 737-800 for any flight simulator, in fact. And the fact that it's added into the Aerofly FS is, I don't know, I just feel like the Boeing 737 has always been a default plane, and having it now in Aerofly is very nice, because the plane flies well, sounds okay. It's not that accurate, but it sounds okay. The 3D modeling is also pretty good, and yeah, I just think it's a pretty good plane for the sim, especially if you have bought the aircraft expansion pack. This is more than enough, and the fact that it comes with like 70 plus liveries is also a huge plus for the sim. So yep, that is all from me for now in this video, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys later. Thank you.